Today we'll continue with the neuroophthalmology. Today we'll do the abnormalities of the pupil. So before we start the pupillary abnormalities, a few things about the light reflex. We'll be talking about the light reflex. We'll be talking about the abnormal pupil. So we'll be talking about the Argyll-Robertson pupil. We'll be talking about the Adie's pupil today. We'll be talking about the Wernicke's hemianopic pupil, and last we will be talking about the Hutchison's pupil, and also a few important points about the sympathetic pathway, the Horner syndrome and the sympathetic pathway. So this is the discussion for today. So let's begin the discussion. So all these are important from the exam point of view. We have been getting a lot of questions from Adie's pupil, Argyll-Robertson pupil, Wernicke's pupil. So we'll be discussing about the pathology, the site of the lesion, and how we make the diagnosis. Okay, so to begin with, we start with the pupillary light reflex. Okay, so the pupillary light reflex, it has an afferent pathway and an efferent pathway. So the afferent pathway, it begins with the afferent pathway begins with the optic nerve. Okay, so whenever the light is shown on the optic nerve, whenever the light is shown, the image, the first order neuron, the impulses travel through the optic nerve, and from the optic nerve they reach the pretectal nucleus. Okay, the pretectal nucleus, which is present in the dorsal midbrain, is the center for the light reflex. So if they ask you which is the center for light reflex, it is the pretectal nucleus. So from the pretectal nucleus, via the internuncial neurons, it travels to the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. The Edinger-Westphal nucleus, from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, we have the preganglionic parasympathetic pathway. Okay, so from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus to the ciliary ganglion, we have the preganglionic parasympathetic pathway. So this is mediated by the third cranial nerve. This is the efferent pathway. A for afferent, optic nerve. Efferent pathway is the oculomotor nerve, or the third cranial nerve. Okay, so the preganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, they travel to the ciliary ganglion. From the ciliary ganglion, via the short ciliary nerves. Okay, short ciliary nerves and the posterior ciliary nerves, which are the post ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers. Okay, so the post ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers via the short ciliary nerves, they supply the sphincter pupillae. This sphincter pupillae will cause the constriction of the pupil. So the light which is shown on the eye will be traveling via the optic nerve, then the pretectal nucleus. From the pretectal nucleus, which is the center for the light reflex, Edinger-Westphal nucleus through the internuncial neurons. From the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, the preganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers travel via the oculomotor nerve. They transmit it to the ciliary ganglion, and from the ciliary ganglion, the postganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers travel via the short ciliary nerves, which supplies the sphincter pupillae. The sphincter pupillae will constrict. So this is the pathway for the light reflex. Okay, in light reflex, we should know two other important things. We should know something called as the swinging flashlight test. So swinging flashlight test, when we take a pen torch and we shine it at the eye, okay, from one eye it is taken to the other eye. So both the pupils should simultaneously constrict. Okay, so if the light reflex pathway is normal, both the pupils will simultaneously constrict. But if there is a abnormality in the pupillary pathway, either in the optic nerve, okay, the pupils will dilate. This is called as relative afferent pupillary defect. This is called as relative afferent pupillary defect, also known as the Marcus-Gunn pupil. Okay, so the relative afferent pupillary defect or the Marcus-Gunn pupil occurs when there is a defect in the pathway, mainly in the optic nerve. Okay, so the pupil will paradoxically dilate instead of constricting on swinging flashlight test. So the swinging flashlight test is for checking the pupillary light reflex. Okay, so this is the, so in this slide you should know about the pre-afferent pathway, the efferent pathway, the preganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers, and the postganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers via the short ciliary nerve, which supply the sphincter pupillae. Okay, next we have the Argyll-Robertson pupil. What is Argyll-Robertson pupil? So Argyll-Robertson pupil, you have to remember, so whenever the lesion is in the pretectal nucleus or the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So what did I tell you? The center for the light reflex is the pretectal nucleus. So any lesion in the pretectal nucleus or the Edinger-Westphal nucleus will result in the Argyll-Robertson pupil. So the important causes for Argyll-Robertson pupil include your neurosyphilis and diabetes. So now diabetes, earlier neurosyphilis was the leading cause for Argyll-Robertson pupil. Now diabetes is the leading cause for Argyll-Robertson pupil. Okay, so the lesion is either in the pretectal nucleus or in the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Typically, the patient will have a, how will you remember Argyll-Robertson pupil? Argyll-Robertson pupil, ARP. So ARP stands for accommodation reflex present. Accommodation reflex present. So these patients will have an absent light reflex with a normal accommodation reflex. Okay, there is also presence of light near dissociation. Remember, these pupils are very difficult to dilate. They are difficult to dilate. Okay, so to summarize, Argyll-Robertson pupil is because of the lesion in the pretectal and the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. The most common cause being diabetes. Earlier it was neurosyphilis. The patient will have a normal accommodation reflex. The light reflex is absent. They will have a light near dissociation. Okay. So this is the Argyll-Robertson pupil. So here you can make out. So the accommodation reflex is present, but the light reflex is absent. So there is a light near dissociation in Argyll-Robertson. Next is another important pupil known as the Holmes-Adès pupil. So what is Holmes-Adès pupil? So Holmes-Adès pupil is because of the denervation of the post-ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers. What did I tell you? The post-ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers from the ciliary ganglion, they travel via the short ciliary nerves. So involvement of either the ciliary ganglion or the post-ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers, mainly your short ciliary nerves or the posterior ciliary nerves, will result in the Holmes-Adès pupil. Okay. So there is a denervation of the post-ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers. Okay, so this typically is unilateral in about 80% of the patients. These patients typically have an absent deep tendon reflex. Typically your knee jerk is absent. Knee jerk is absent. And so the other name for Adès pupil is also known as a vermiform pupil. What is vermiform pupil? So because of the sluggish dilatation of the, because of the sluggish, irregular, slow, tonic, sluggish movement of the pupil, it is also known as a vermiform pupil. Okay, vermiform pupil is because of its slow, tonic, irregular movement of the pupil. So this is the Adès pupil. So remember, both the light and the accommodation reflex is slow in these patients. Light reflex and the accommodation reflex is slow in these patients. That's hence the name vermiform pupil. Okay. Another important, very important point in Adès pupil is the denervation hypersensitivity to low dose pilocarpine. So what is this denervation hypersensitivity? Low dose pilocarpine. So when we're using a very low dose pilocarpine, as less as 0.125% of pilocarpine, the pupil, normally what did I tell you? The pupil will, there is a constriction of the pupil to a very low dose pilocarpine. Normally these pupils are very sluggish to react in light reflex, the accommodation reflex, both are very sluggish in these patients. But when you are putting a single drop of very low dose pilocarpine as low as 0.125% of pilocarpine, these pupil will suddenly constrict. This constriction of the pupil is because of the denervation hypersensitivity. Okay, because of the denervation hypersensitivity, these pupil will suddenly constrict. This is the characteristic feature of a Adès pupil. This they have asked umpty number of times. Okay, so to summarize, Adès pupil is because of the denervation of the post-ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers. So either the lesion is in the ciliary ganglion or the small short ciliary nerves, okay, which supply the sphincter. So it is also known as a vermiform pupil because of the slow, irregular, tonic movement of the iris. So they constrict to both light and accommodation very slowly. and they are associated with the abnormal deep tendon reflex. Mainly the knee jerk is absent. They have a denervation hypersensitivity to low dose pilocarpine, as low as 0.125% pilocarpine. Okay. So next we will discuss a few points about the Hutchison pupil. So what is Hutchison pupil? What is Hutchison pupil? So following trauma, following head injury, okay, following head injury, okay, it can also occur following any cerebral hemorrhage or any cerebral abscess. Okay. So what happens initially, because of the raised intracranial pressure, what will happen to the pupil? There is irritation of the third cranial nerve, because of which there is constriction of the pupil. Okay. So initially in Hutchison pupil, due to the raised intracranial pressure, there is impingement or there is a compression of the third cranial nerve due to the herniation of the temporal. So what does this result in? This results in a myost pupil. Initially in a Hutchison pupil, the pupil is myost. Okay, so later initial meiosis because of the irritation of the ipsilateral third cranial nerve. Later there is the dilatation of the ipsilateral pupil. Later there is a dilatation of the ipsilateral pupil which reacts to both light and convergence. So in a true Hutchison pupil, what happens in a true Hutchison pupil? The pupil is dilated, it's mydriatic or dilated, with the patient is having severe drowsiness and there is loss of all reflexes. Okay. So I'll summarize. Hutchison pupil is due to head injury, hemorrhage, cerebral abscess. Because of the raised ICP, the patient will have compression of the third cranial nerve due to the herniation. The pupil will be myost. Later there is the dilatation of the ipsilateral pupil along with, so there is a dilatation of the ipsilateral pupil. Light reflex and the convergent reflex are normal. A true Hutchison pupil will have a dilated pupil. The patient will be comatose, drowsy with a loss of all the reflexes. So these are the features of a Hutchison pupil. So quickly we'll go to the sympathetic pathway. The sympathetic pathway is very important. So the sympathetic pathway is divided into the first order neurons, the second order neurons and the third order neurons. Okay. So the first order neurons, it begins from the posterior hypothalamus. It descends downwards. Okay. It descends downwards and it ends in the ciliospinal center of Budge. Okay. Which is the ventral rami of CA2T2. Ciliocentral spinal of Budge, which is a ventral rami of CA2T2. Okay. So from here, from the ciliospinal center, the second order neurons, they traverse along the subclavian artery and they ascend along the internal carotid artery and they end in the superior cervical ganglion. So from the superior cervical ganglion, the third order neurons, it ascends along the internal carotid artery and it supplies the dilata pupilla via the long ciliary nerves. Okay. So the post-ganglionic fibers are supplied via the long ciliary nerves. So this will cause the dilatation of the pupil. The sympathetic pathway will cause the dilatation of the pupil. The parasympathetic pathway will cause the constriction of the pupil. So in Horner syndrome, it is very important to know the site of the lesion. Okay. So when there is a Pancoast tumor. So a Pancoast tumor, what it does? A Pancoast tumor will compress the second part of the optic nerve. It compresses the second part of the optic nerve. So second part of the optic nerve is a preganglionic. So any internal carotid artery aneurysm, okay, an internal carotid artery aneurysm will compress the third order neurons. Okay, it compresses the third order neurons, which is the post-ganglionic fibers. So what is the significance of this preganglionic, post-ganglionic? So in order to diagnose Horner syndrome, we use 4% cocaine, and in order to diagnose preganglionic and postganglionic, we use 4% hydroxyamphetamine. We use hydroxyamphetamine 0.1%. So when you're using hydroxyamphetamine to differentiate between the preganglionic and the postganglionic. So a Pancoast tumor will be a preganglionic, while a internal carotid artery aneurysm will be a postganglionic. And remember, the aneurysm will typically be painful. The patient will have an ipsilateral pain on the face and on the neck. Okay. In an aneurysm, the Horner's is associated with a painful ipsilateral pain in the face and in the neck. So this is the sympathetic pathway. So in Horner's, you should know about the presentation. Okay, the patient comes with ptosis, meiosis, anhidrosis, and an apparent enophthalmos. Why is this apparent enophthalmos? The apparent enophthalmos is because of the involvement of the inferior tarsal muscle and the Muller's muscle, both of which receive the supply from the sympathetic pathway. So both of them are, the supply to both of them is not there, because of which it appears like an enophthalmos because of the involvement of these muscles. So hence, since it is not a true enophthalmos, it is known as an apparent enophthalmos. So again, I repeat, apparent enophthalmos is because of the involvement of the Muller's muscle and the inferior tarsal muscle. Okay, and congenital Horner's, you should remember, is associated with iris heterochromia. Okay, that is another important point. Next, coming to the Wernicke's hemianopic pupil. So remember, any optic tract lesion. Okay, whenever the optic tract lesion, what did I tell you yesterday? The nasal 53% of the nasal fibers cross over at the optic tract, while the temporal fibers continue along the optic tract. So whenever there's involvement of the optic tract, the ipsilateral temporal field of vision, the contralateral nasal field of vision is lost. So these patients, whenever the light is shown on the temporal aspect of the ipsilateral eye or the nasal aspect of the contralateral eye, the pupil will not constrict. This is the Wernicke's hemianopic pupil. Okay, so Wernicke's hemianopic pupil is because of the involvement of the optic tract. So we have discussed Argyll-Robertson pupil, Adie's pupil, Hutchison pupil, Horner syndrome, and your Wernicke's hemianopic pupil. Okay, so Marcus-Gunn pupil is because of the defect of the optic nerve. So the optic nerve lies anterior to the optic chiasma. So the answer is anterior to the optic chiasma. So the second order neurons of the optical pathway are present in. Okay, so we should know the first order, the second order, and the third order. Okay, so the first order neurons of the optical pathway is the bipolar cells. The second order neurons are the retinal ganglion cells, and the third order neurons are the lateral geniculate body. Okay, so both the bipolar cells and the retinal ganglion cells are present in the retina. So these are the first and the second order neurons. So the answer will be retina. So Hutchison pupil. So Hutchison pupil, I told you, is following trauma. Initially, there is meiosis because of the irritation of the third cranial nerve, followed by mydriasis. So the answer will be unilateral meiosis followed by mydriasis. Okay, so the pupillary involvement is very early in Hutchison's, this one. Okay, predominantly because of the uncal herniation, there is compression of the third cranial nerve. The irritation of the third cranial nerve will initially cause pupillary meiosis. Later, in a true Hutchison pupil, the patient will have a dilated pupil, mydriatic pupil with drowsiness and loss of consciousness, and the patient will have absent reflexes. All the reflexes, light reflex and the accommodation reflex, all will be absent in the Hutchison pupil. Okay, so diagnose this condition. So what do we have here? So we have a frontal lobe tumor which is compressing the frontal lobe. Ipsilaterally, we have an optic atrophy, and contralaterally, we have a papilledema. So what is your diagnosis? And frontal lobe tumor compressing ipsilaterally on the optic nerve, resulting in optic atrophy and a contralateral papilledema. It is a Foster-Kennedy syndrome. Foster-Kennedy syndrome is because of the frontal lobe tumor. So the answer is Foster-Kennedy syndrome. Where is pseudo-Foster-Kennedy syndrome seen? Pseudo-Foster-Kennedy syndrome is seen in non-arthritic AION. So non-arthritic AON is responsible for the pseudo-Foster-Kennedy syndrome. Okay, next, lesion in the Argyll-Robertson pupil. Okay, Argyll-Robertson pupil, we discussed the lesion is either in the pretectal nucleus or the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So the answer is pretectal nucleus and the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So it's the pretectal and the Edinger-Westphal nucleus is connected by the interstitial neurons. Okay, pupilomotor fibers of the third cranial nerve, it travels along the, so the answer is nerve to the inferior oblique. Okay, so pupilomotor fibers of the third cranial nerve, they travel via the nerve to inferior oblique and reach the ciliary ganglion. Okay, so we just discussed previously. So which is the nerve? It is the nerve to the inferior oblique, which transmits the impulses to the ciliary ganglion. Okay, so loss of convergence with a slight light reflex is seen in. Okay, so he's telling loss of convergence. So the answer is Holmes-Adie's pupil. Okay, so Holmes-Adie's pupil, two things: postganglion parasympathetic nerve fibers supplying the sphincter and denervation hypersensitivity to low dose pilocarpine. As low as 0.1% pilocarpine will result in a paradoxical constriction of the pupil, which is a feature of Holmes-Addis pupil. So all the following constitute Horner syndrome except, okay, so just now we discussed it is not exophthalmos, it is an apparent anophthalmos. So the answer is exophthalmos, okay. Exophthalmos is not a feature of Horner's. Horner's is characterized by an apparent anophthalmos, okay. Pupil which responds to convergence but not light reflex. The answer is Argyll-Robertson pupil, okay. So with this, we finish the class for today. Hope this is useful. So tomorrow we'll be discussing about the gaze palsy, the vertical gaze center, the horizontal gaze center, the Perinaut syndrome, and all the gaze palsies. Okay. So hopefully this is useful. All the best.
Best training, peaceful environment, PG medical entrance exam preparation were my expectations. I got them at Speed Medical Village in Kanchipuram. Today I am a PG topper.
Speed Medical Village, a unique eco-friendly campus dedicated for PG preparation. Speed Medical Institute, a complete solution for medical education.